Okay, in this video, we are going to talk about donations of assets and shares, and also we are going to discuss legal and contributed capital. So the first problem talks about donations of assets and shares. We are required to prepare journal entries and also to compute the donated capital at the end of the period. So if you want to read the whole problem first, then you could just pause the video. Okay, so let's start March 21. So it's on year 2018, Arias Realty gave the corporation 5 hectares of land valued at 6 million. So, Marasigan, which is the point of view of this problem, agreed to build a distribution warehouse, wherein they agreed to employ at least 50 local residents. So our entry is just a simple land debit at fair market value as always, and we just have to credit donated capital. So every time we receive something, property that is given to us through donation, so we just have to credit donated capital. And it is in the amount of 6 million, which is the fair market value of the land. Next, on April 30, a shareholder donated 10,000 shares of Marasigan, 200 par ordinary shares. So this time, a certain shareholder wants to donate um, his 10,000 shares, and that shares is his share of the Marasigan Corporation. So kung ato ang tan-awon or sabton ang iyang point of view, ako si Marasigan, I have a shareholder, and kani nga shareholder gusto niya i-donate ang iyahang shares nga iyang gipalit sa ako. So it's as if nipalit siya and then iya ra pong gi-donate sa ako. So if that's donation, wala ko'y gihatag in exchange. So the stock was selling 425. So in the standards, it says that when we receive donation from our shareholder through the shares that nga iyang gipalit sa atoa or gikan sa corporation, there is no journal entry that should be recorded or recognized. Instead, there would only be a memorandum entry. Okay? So on April 30, we just need to put memo entry, and that memo entry is received. Oy, no, sana to? Memo entry. Received donated shares from shareholder in the amount of, how much is that? 10,000 shares with 425 per share. So since this is not a recordable event naman, so we could just put there receive 10,000 shares from shareholder as donation. Okay, so again, we just have to record a memorandum entry. And then on June 25, Bobadilla Holdings donated a mobile office, and it has a fair market value through an independent appraisal of 675. So building, and then again, that's a donated capital because we received a property as donation, and that is 675. And lastly, on July 15, 4,000 of the shares that we received as donation from a shareholder were sold for 1.82 million. So, on April 30, di ba hindi tayo nag-record ng entry? Because the standard says when we receive donated shares, so shares of the company na gidonate ra pod sa atua, memo entry lang siya. But we are going to recognize that shares donated to us only when we are able to sell it again. Okay? So that is what happens on July 15. So we received cash in the amount of 1.82 million and credit donated capital. Okay? So kung nakita na to ang difference, if a shareholder or if someone donates a property in the corporation, okay, property, we just have to debit the property and credit donated capital. But there is an exemption if a person, or it could be a shareholder, donates his or her shares on the company, we are going to record an entry only when that shares are sold. So when we receive that, we do not record a journal entry. We only record journal entry when it is already sold. Okay? Then question number 2, we are to add all the donated capital. Okay, so that's 6 million plus 675 plus 1.82, and that is 8,495,000 total donated capital as of December 31, 2018. Okay, so that's problem number 17. So let's proceed to the next problem, which is about legal capital. So that's problem number 20. How much is the legal capital? Although the requirement is to compute the legal capital, I would like us to compute the contributed capital as well. Okay? So legal capital. How do we compute for this, and what are the components? When we say legal capital, we are only concerned with those items that are measured at par or that are recorded at par. And what are these items that are recorded at par? Isn't it preference shares, ordinary shares, and subscribed OS? Mo lang man no? And also subscribed PS. But in this problem, wala naman tayong subscribed preference shares. So we would account only those three that I mentioned. So what are those? PS, OS, and SOS. So that is 2.3 to 300. And then we have ordinary shares of 5 to 50 and subscribed OS of 50,000. And therefore, the legal capital is the total of these three items measured at par. So that is 7.6 million. Again, although it is not asked, I would want us to compute for the contributed capital now. Unsa naman po ning contributed capital? It's just the legal capital plus the excess. From the term itself, contributed, kung pila tong total nga gihatag sa shareholders upon buying the shares. Okay? Di ba dili man sa tanang panahon that if shareholders would buy shares from us, is ang ilang bayaran kay par, di ba na may mga panahon that they would pay more than par or greater than the par value. So any excess will go to the share premium, tama? But if we will be asked the contributed capital, the answer is kung pila gyud to ang iyahang tibuok nga gibayan. So that means it includes the OS at par and the excess of share premium. So basically, contributed capital is just the legal capital plus the share premium and minus the subscribed or the subscriptions receivable. So with that said, we have here preference, ordinary, and your subscribed. So mao ni siya kaganina ang components atuang legal capital. Ang ato na lang i-add din hiya ang kaning ubang items like the share premium, preference, also the share premium, ordinary. And lastly, this is a contra equity account. I already mentioned this one. Subscriptions receivable. So if the problem is silent, we will assume that this is part of the equity section. So it will be a contra equity account. So we have here preference shares of 2-3, and then share premium preference of 805, ordinary shares of 5,250, and then share premium ordinary, you have there 2,750, subscribed OS of 50,000, and your subscriptions receivable of 400. Medyo ano siya, no? I think this problem is kinda mali. Mali siya in a sense nga if you will notice, mas dako si subscribed OS kaysa kang subscriptions receivable, which is most of the time hindi naman siya pwede, di ba? So I think using common sense, no, kaning 50,000 here should be 500. Okay? So hindi pwedeng mas malaki si receivable kaysa kay SOS, or else mag-negative ni siya. So 50 minus 400, negative na siya. So let's correct this one. So Let us assume that this is 500 na may error lang si Balyada. Okay, so our legal capital will change into 8,050,000 and let's correct it here as well na 500,000. Okay, so that's less 400 subscriptions receivable. Adding all these and deduct the contra equity receivable, we are going to have 11,205,000 as our contributed capital. So again, contributed capital is just legal capital plus all the other excesses, and less your subscriptions receivable. Legal capital is concerned only of those items or accounts recorded at par. Okay? So let's proceed to problem number 19. Okay. Problem number 19 is here. Okay. So we are going to answer these 9 questions here. The shareholders equity section of Nazario Freight Express Incorporated as at December 31, 2018 appeared as follows. What is the total issue price of the preference shares? Is the first question. So, total issue price is kung pila ang gibayad sa shareholders in exchange of the preference shares. So basically, that is the total of your preference shares at par plus your share premium preference. But in this problem, if you could notice, wala naman siyang share premium preference. So we are going to assume na upon buying the shares, ang iyaha lang nga gibayaran is only at par. Okay? So, how do we compute for that since naka-question mark man siya? So, 70,000 shares issued times the par value of 75. So, ingana lang. So, 75,000 times 70. Pila ba itong iyang par? 75. Okay, 70,000 times 75. Okay. So, you have here 5.25 million PS. So, again ha, ang iyang ipangutan na total issue price, we are supposed to add PS plus share premium PS kasi total issue price man ang iyang ipangutana. But in this problem, walang SPPS. So, assuming na pagpalit sa preference shares, ang gibayaran lang is purely the par value of 75. Walay excess. So, that will be the issue price. And that is 5.25 million. Now, how many ordinary shares were issued? Pila daw ang issued? So, unsa ganito to ang analysis ani? Issued shares times the stated value equals your OS. In this case, may total na OS amount, may stated value, pero walang number of shares. So, it's a simple 500,000 divided by your stated value na 5 pesos. Therefore, you have 100,000 OS. Next, how many ordinary shares are outstanding? So, most of the time, the number of shares issued is just equal to number of shares outstanding, except kung naay treasury stock. Kasi gani, pag naay treasury stock, that is deducted from the number of shares outstanding. So, number of shares outstanding is 100,000 minus ang imuhang treasury stock nga 10,000. Therefore, ang outstanding lang as of the moment is 90,000. 100,000 issued, 90,000 outstanding because the other 10,000 is held as treasury. 4. What was the total issue price of the ordinary shares? So it's the same question in number 1, but the perspective right now is on the ordinary shares. So again, it is the value of the shares at par plus the excess, the share premium. So we have here 500, the total ordinary share capital, and the share premium of 600. So 500,000 plus 600,000, I believe that's 1.1 million. Now, question number 5. What is the total legal capital of the corporation? Legal capital, we only talk about the accounts recorded at par. So we have PS here. Kaning naka-question mark, number 1. And then we have OS. Wala naman tayong mga subscribed shares, tama? So, we will only compute 5,250 na PS plus 500 na OS, a total of 5.75 legal capital. Number 6, total contributed capital. So, ganitong contributed capital, the legal capital plus the excess, which is the share premium. So, nabay share premium din ha? 600. So, our contributed capital is 6.35. Walang subscribed shares, wala ding subscriptions receivable. Number 7, what is the total shareholders equity? So, we already have, ang missing lang man dinhi, di ba, kay kaning PS, which is 5,250. So, since na-compute naman nato na siya, then we could now compute for the total shareholders. So, you have there 5,250, OS na 500, and then share premium nga 600. You also have this retained earnings, which is your accumulated income of 1 million. And then you have treasury stock, which is a contra asset, so contra equity, so minus 40,000. Therefore, our total shareholders equity is 7.31 million. 8. For how much per share was the treasury stock purchased? So, pila daw ang kada isa ka share. So, you have here a 40,000 cost for treasury shares, good for the 10,000 shares. So, pila daw ang kada isa? Analysis, kung 40,000 imong palit, yang imong gipalit, 10,000 ka buok, therefore, tag 4 pesos ang isa. Okay? And question number 9, what is the amount of the required preference dividend? So, this is we are going to tackle this deeper on the next lesson, which is dividends. But on this portion, we could easily compute it as kung pilang imuhang total par sa imuhang PS, i-compute lang na siya sa iyang rate nga 6 million. 6%. Grabe, 6 million. 6%. That is your required preference share. So, mo nang imuhang gi-commit sa imuhang preference shareholders. Okay? So, that's 5,250, tama, di ba? Times your 6%. So, you promised your shareholders or preference shareholders 315,000 as their dividends. Okay? So, this will be our answer for problem number 19. So, in this video, we learned about donations, legal capital, contributed capital, and also these items, unsaon ni siya pag-analyze. Okay? So, I hope you learned a lot. That will be all. Thank you.